Have you ever loved someone so much that even when it got hard, you still chose them? Maybe you've argued, maybe you've grown apart, maybe you've wondered if love is supposed to feel this heavy. But here's the truth, love isn't about never falling, it's about choosing again after every fall. Today, let's slow down, listen, and rediscover what it really means to still choose love, every single day. The moment of doubt. It started on a quiet Tuesday morning in Copenhagen. The rain was soft, the kind that didn't really fall, it floated. Anna sat by the window, a mug of coffee growing cold in her hands. Across the small kitchen table sat Jonas, scrolling through his phone, eyes half awake. They weren't fighting. They weren't even talking. And somehow, that silence hurt more than any argument could. You know that kind of silence, right? The one that feels like distance wrapped in calm. It's the moment when you start asking questions you're afraid to say out loud. Do they still love me? Or worse, do I still love them? Psychologists call this the emotional plateau. It's the space between comfort and disconnection, where your brain stops chasing novelty. Dopamine levels drop, routines take over, and what once felt magical now feels normal. Too normal. Anna looked at Jonas and thought, when did we stop trying? But here's the thing, love doesn't die in a storm, it fades quietly, under the weight of everyday life. Dishes, bills, tired mornings. The kind of things you never see in movies but that test the strength of real love every day. She wanted to say something, anything, but instead, she sipped her coffee and watched the raindrops race down the glass. And deep down, she wondered, is this what love becomes when you stop choosing it? The truth is, doubt isn't the end of love. It's a sign that something inside you still cares enough to question. Maybe, just maybe, doubt is love's way of asking for attention. The Flashback Café. Later that afternoon, Anna walked past the small cafe where she and Jonas had their first date, the little corner cafe, tucked between a bookstore and a flower shop in the heart of Copenhagen. The smell of cinnamon rolls and roasted coffee beans spilled onto the street, wrapping her in a memory she hadn't planned to visit. She remembered how Jonas was late that day, 15 minutes late, and how she almost left. But then he came rushing in, his hair wet from the rain, holding a small tulip he'd picked from a nearby park. "It's not perfect," he said, "but neither am I." She laughed then, and somehow that awkward honesty became their beginning. It's strange how the brain works. Neuroscientists say that when we remember something emotionally charged, like love, or heartbreak, our brain replays it, as if it's happening again. The heart beats faster, the air feels thicker, and for a second, the past feels real. Standing outside that cafe, Anna felt that exact rush. The laughter. The butterflies. The warmth that once made her world glow. But it was followed by something heavier, nostalgia, the bittersweet proof that time moves on whether you're ready or not. Sometimes love doesn't fade because of anger. It fades because of silence. Because the people who once talked for hours now scroll beside each other without a word. Because they forget to look up. Because they stop choosing. Anna smiled faintly at the cafe window, watching a young couple laughing inside, unaware of how fragile that stage of love is. Then she whispered softly to herself, "We used to be them." But as she turned to walk away, she felt something shift, a small voice in her heart saying, "It's not too late." The routine we forgot. Every relationship has a rhythm, little routines that stitch two lives together like quiet threads. For Anna and Jonas, it was Saturday mornings. They'd ride their bicycles to the harbor, grab pastries from a bakery by the water, and watch the ferries come and go, but over time, those mornings vanished. Not with a fight, not with a goodbye, just with the slow, invisible drift of two people trying to survive their own busy worlds. Jonas started working late. Anna took on extra hours at the library. The sound of laughter over coffee was replaced by the hum of exhaustion and unread messages. Here's the thing. Psychologists say love doesn't disappear all at once. It fades microscopically, in forgotten routines, skipped touches, and unspoken gratitude. The brain craves connection like oxygen, but when routine turns to repetition, it starts shutting off emotional signals to protect itself. That's why comfortable relationships can suddenly feel empty. One day, Anna realized she couldn't remember the last time they'd eaten together without phones on the table. Or the last time Jonas asked her how her day really was. It wasn't that he didn't care, it was that caring had become silent. She sat at her kitchen table that evening, staring at 2 cups of coffee. One for her. One untouched, and for the first time, she whispered, "When did we stop trying?" In Denmark, there's a saying, "Kærlighed skal plejes, lige som en have." Love must be cared for, like a garden. Maybe that's what she had forgotten. Not how to love, but how to water it. The letter on the table. The next morning, Anna did something she hadn't done in years. She wrote a letter. Not an email. Not a text. A real letter, with ink smudges and pauses that made her handwriting tremble. She wrote to Jonas, even though he was still asleep in the next room. She wrote about the mornings they used to share, about the laughter that still echoed in her mind when the house felt too quiet. She wrote, "I miss us." Not the version that worked perfectly, but the version that tried, every single day. In Denmark, many people believe in what's called hygge, the feeling of cozy togetherness. But true hygge isn't just candles and warm blankets. It's being emotionally present. It's remembering to look someone in the eye when you say, "I'm glad you're here." When Jonas found the letter on the table, his hands shook. Not because he was afraid, but because, for the first time in a long while, he felt seen. He sat down, read every word twice, and realized something simple yet powerful. Love doesn't fade when you stop feeling it. It fades when you stop expressing it. He didn't write back. He didn't need to. That night, he came home with 2 pastries and said, half smiling, "I thought maybe we could bring Saturdays back." That was all. No grand speech. No dramatic music. Just 2 people sitting at a small kitchen table, rediscovering the rhythm they'd almost forgotten, and for Anna, it felt like breathing again. The cafe by the sea. A few weeks later, Anna and Jonas decided to take a short trip to the seaside, a quiet village on Denmark's northern coast, where seagulls cried above the small wooden boats and the wind carried the smell of salt and cinnamon pastries. It was the same place they had visited on their honeymoon years ago. At first, the silence between them was awkward, like two strangers rehearsing small talk. But something changed when they walked into a small cafe they used to love, Havetsjert, meaning the heart of the sea. The cafe owner, an old woman with silver hair, recognized them instantly. "You two again," she laughed softly. "Still together?" Anna froze for a moment. Then Jonas looked at her and replied, "Still choosing each other." That simple answer carried the weight of everything they'd been through, every argument, every doubt, every quiet moment where they almost gave up, over coffee and freshly baked rye bread. They talked like they hadn't in years. Not about problems or plans, but about small, human things. What she dreamed about last night, the book he never finished, the funny way tourists tried to pronounce Danish words. It was in that cafe, surrounded by strangers and the hum of the sea, that Anna realized something profound. Love doesn't always need fixing. Sometimes, it just needs space, the kind of space where silence isn't punishment, but peace. When they left the cafe, the wind was colder, but her heart felt warm. She thought to herself, maybe this is what love looks like after it stops being perfect. It becomes real. And for the first time in a long time, she reached for his hand without thinking. What love looks like now. When they returned home from the seaside, nothing magical happened. No fireworks, no sudden transformation. The dishes still piled up. The emails still came. Life continued, steady and imperfect, but something subtle had shifted between them. Anna noticed it one morning when Jonas poured her coffee without asking how she wanted it, and somehow, he got it right. She smiled. Little things like that had started happening again, quietly rebuilding what they had almost lost. Love, she realized, isn't always loud or grand. It's the silent gestures, the daily decisions to care even when no one is watching. In Denmark, people have a word for that, hygge, the cozy, unspoken comfort of being with someone you trust. One evening, as they sat by the window watching rain slide down the glass, Jonas asked, "Do you ever think we'll be the same as before?" Anna shook her head gently. "No," she said. "But maybe we're not supposed to be. Maybe we're meant to be something new, something that's still growing." There was no need for long speeches. The quiet between them now felt safe again, not like distance, but like understanding. Every time she looked at him, she saw not the man she married, but the man who stayed, who chose her even when love felt heavy and uncertain. And in return, she found herself choosing him back, one moment at a time, because love, she thought, isn't a single decision made once upon a time. It's a daily choice, whispered softly, over morning coffee and shared silence, and that's when Anna realized, they hadn't fallen out of love. They had simply learned how to love differently. The choice that never ends. Weeks passed, and life slowly found its rhythm again. The arguments grew shorter, the laughter came easier, and the quiet moments no longer felt like walls. Anna began to notice how love had become less about feeling and more about doing. She saw it when Jonas stayed up late fixing a leaky sink so she wouldn't wake up to the sound of dripping. She saw it when she packed him lunch, adding a note that said, "Still proud of you." It wasn't grand romance, it was something softer, deeper, and far more human. One morning, while walking through the cobbled streets of Copenhagen, they stopped by a small flower shop. Jonas picked a single white tulip, her favorite, and handed it to her. "No reason," he said. "Just because." Anna smiled, holding the flower close. In that moment, she remembered how love had once been about fireworks and butterflies. Now, it was about quiet mornings, shared burdens, and forgiveness, not the kind that says, "It's fine," but the kind that says, "We're still learning." Later that night, as they cooked dinner together, she looked at him and said, "Do you think people ever stop choosing?" Jonas thought for a moment. "Maybe some do," he said. "But the rest of us, we just keep choosing, again and again, until it feels like breathing." Anna nodded, letting the words sink in. That's when she finally understood. Love isn't about never doubting. It's about choosing, even when you do, because real love isn't something that just happens to you. It's something you build, with both hands, every single day. Still choosing you. Months later, on a cold Danish morning, Anna woke to the sound of soft rain tapping against the window. The sky was pale gray, and the air smelled of coffee and new beginnings. She turned to find Jonas still asleep beside her, his hand resting near hers, fingers almost touching. For a long moment, she simply watched him breathe. There was a time when she would have looked away, afraid of what she might feel. But now, she let herself stay. Love, she realized, wasn't about the grand promises they made years ago under the summer sun. It was about the quiet mornings like this, choosing to stay, to listen, to begin again. She thought of all the times they could have walked away, and all the times they didn't. Every argument, every silence, every tear had led them here, not to a perfect ending, but to a living, breathing love that had learned how to bend without breaking. As Jonas stirred awake, he smiled groggily and whispered, "You're staring at me again." Anna laughed softly. "Just reminding myself why I still choose you." He reached for her hand, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't think about yesterday or tomorrow. Just this moment. Just this choice, because that's the truth of love. It's not one promise made forever, but 1,000 small promises kept today. And as the rain continued to fall outside, she thought, maybe love isn't about finding the right person. Maybe it's about becoming the right person, over and over again. She looked at him, not with fear, not with doubt, but with the quiet strength of someone who had finally learned what love truly means. Love was never about grand gestures or perfect timing. It was about the small choices. The "I'm still here" when everything feels heavy. The "I still choose you" when it would be easier to walk away. For a long time, she thought love was a fairy tale, something that only lived in books and movies. But now, standing in the soft light of a Danish sunset, she realized it was something much simpler, and far more real. It was the way he waited for her in silence, the way she forgave him without words, the way they both kept choosing, again and again. Maybe that's what it means to love someone, not to hold them tightly, but to understand that even after all the storms, you would still find your way back, to them, and to yourself. And as the evening breeze touched her face, she smiled. Not because everything was perfect, but because she had found peace, in her heart, in her choice, in the simple act of still choosing love. But what happens when tomorrow brings a truth that changes everything? When love must face a new test, one that no one saw coming? Stay tuned for the next story. The morning after still choosing you, a quiet moment that could change their lives forever.